Hello everyone, Strikoder here and welcome back to a new episode of Active Directory Hacking Lab. In this episode we're gonna discover the open ports together and we're gonna enumerate the Active Directory. However, I would like to start with explaining each port by itself rather than starting with the users, computers, devices, all the machines that we have in the domain. So let's get started. Be sure to run the domain controller. I don't believe we're going to use this machine in today's episode, so no need to run them. I have them up for the next episodes maybe, if I had time to take the video for now. So for now, be sure just to run the domain controller if you don't have enough RAM. And of course, you need to run your Kali machine or whatever sys you're working on. So first of all, I would like to start with Nmap. As always, -b- for all ports, version detection, then scripting, PN for not using the SN, and for not I believe it uses the acknowledge, if I'm not mistaken, or that I believe that was ST. Here we have the IB-VV for double verbose, ON to save the output to Nmap full. And over here we can try ping the domain controller, so it's up and running and we are getting our results back. I'm gonna run the Nmap and we see open ports. So I'm gonna start from the 53, which is DNS. DNS is used for, well, first of all, what does DNS mean? The DNS means the domain name system. In Active Directory, DNS is absolutely critical, and without it, like almost nothing works. It's responsible for resolving host names to IP addresses, but also much more. For instance, if you have an IP and you want to reach a specific device by its name, you need to use the DNS. And as attackers, we use DNS to discover domain controllers, subdomains, even attempt zone transfers, which I believe it's extremely rare in IRL scenarios because you mostly gonna pen test a domain controller or an Active Directory set internally, so you probably won't see zone transfers. Of course, if they are misconfigured. And that's it about the sport. If you want more information, you can of course Google that or ask ChatGPT. So there are several tools to use for DNS. You can check my GitHub. You can go to Strikoder, then OSCP toolkit. Within that, you can check enumeration and go to, I believe, No-Auth DNS. So this is a script I made for the BT1 exam and for the PMPT. And to enumerate the DNS ASAP, so first we start by using dig, I believe. So we use dig, and over here we gave no all and answer as parameters to queue. So we start by dig, typical dig, then over here we use SOA, NS, ANI, A for A, CNAME. So we are enumerating DNS. If you don't know what are these and you want like a separate episode explaining what are these, please let me know in the comment section. And we are then getting the SRV records, then zone transfers, reverse lookup if we have some IPs and we want to get the host name, which most of the time you will get the host name just of the DC and a clean summary at the end. So let's run the script. So to run the script, I would type DNS enum and give the IP. The IP, however, over here is, or let me show you my other scripts. So export all IB is equal 10, 0 to 15. So whenever I run export all, it get to other Tmax panels. So over here, let me try no enum. or try to go to delete, and over here no enum, no auth DNS, and I believe, let me check. So you need to provide the domain IP, server DNS server IP, and the domain. And if you want as well to enumerate, you can provide the subdomain word list. However, we want just to provide pentest.local, which is, if you followed every episode of our lab, you're gonna have pentest.local. And over here we see the start of authority, NS, ANI, IPv4, 6, aliases, which is CNAME, MX, TXT. So all of these just to search for subdomains or for IPs, addresses inside our Active Directory to get maybe an initial foothold into other machine. So over here, the summary, what's important, we see lab-dc.pentest.local, which is the name of our DC. Okay, that was the DNS. Let me get back to here. I'm gonna export the IP over here because it didn't export for this panel. It was running Nmap 10.0.2.15. So you can use export or export all. I don't believe that's within the Kali by default, so try to check my scripts as well on my GitHub. And let's see other stuff. So we checked 53, and now for 88. 88 is, of course, Kerberos. This port runs Kerberos protocol, and this is what handles authentication inside the domain. Here is how it works simplified. When a user logs in, they ask the domain controller for something called TGT, a ticket granting ticket. This ticket lets them request access to services later without re-entering their password. So whenever you want to reach, for instance, SQL, you ask for a ticket, then try to reach SQL again, you're gonna use the ticket instead of like you're gonna cache the ticket instead of caching the password and saving it in not very safe way. Now, why is this interesting for us as penetration testers or red teamers or whatsoever as an attacker? Well, if a user account is misconfigured and doesn't require pre-authentication, we can perform something called ASREP roasting. And if a user has an SPN, which means a service principal name, we can go for Kerberos roasting, and which allows us to dump service tickets and try to crack them offline. And this attack vector is called either golden ticket or server ticket attack. Both attacks are stealthy, fast, and do not require code execution. I mean the ASREP roasting and the Kerberos roasting. However, they are easily detectable, I believe, by SOC. So if you are a red teamer, of course you already know this. And I have this script which does no authentication Kerberos. So we have two modes over here. First of all, to enumerate by a word list or by doing ASREP roasting with a specific user list. I'm not doing the ASREP roasting because the usernames that we had are, I believe, extremely unique, and you will not have them in any specific word list. So we're gonna discover that later in other episodes. And over here, Kerberos for usernames, to check for usernames, the same thing. However, if you want to run that on any specific machine, you can just type Kerberos and user enumeration -d for domain, DC with the IP, and provide the word list. If you are not sure what's happening over here, don't worry, we're gonna see that later in other episodes. And over here, the same thing. So just to show you, I'm gonna check over here, view, oops, I believe manage, and maybe with tools, I need to check users and computers. So we have asrep user, cert user. I'm gonna add them to our list. So cd to delete them. If you don't want to use them or vi, use touchpad, mousepad, I believe it was called, and users.text. And let me check administrator asrep. So I'm gonna, oops, I believe I closed that. No, here is it. So asrep underscore user. Let me go back to here. asrep test 1. I'm gonna add here test 2, test 3, and so on. Then I'm gonna type no-auth Kerberos and provide -t, as you can see over here, DCIP. I'm gonna export that in a minute, and the domain. Okay, so I need to type export all or only export, or you can provide them directly. DCIP equals 10.0.2.15 and export all. What did we need as well? No-auth Kerberos domain. So export all domains equal pentest.local. And now let's run no-auth Kerberos. So it asks us, do we want to check if the user is already inside the Active Directory? However, Kerberos gives us most of the time few false positives, because if an account is disabled or if it's just a honeypot, it's gonna tell you that the user is working. So it's better to enumerate them by SMB or asrep roasting to check if the user is asrep roastable. Let's try both. So I'm gonna provide one, and here they are asking by a specific word list. I'm gonna type 3, and over here users, I believe it was called users.text. So we tried, and so Kerberos username DC, I believe we have a folder right now, so cat. So we had nothing, it didn't authenticate as that user. Let me try again now with the second one. Custom path users.text. So it didn't work. Okay, that's strange. What do we get here? So Kerberos session password has expired, change password to reset, because I made the episode, I believe, a little bit far from the beginning of the lab. So we can go to our lab DC and go to our users. So let me check if you are here. These are just pre-checks. Over here, type press on tools, then users and computers, and you see this. So I'm sorry, I cannot zoom in over here, and type on all of the users, and password never expires. However, if you are doing the lab just recently, you will not get this error. So let's try that again. I'm gonna say to users.text, and we see we got hash. So what to do with this hash? We can do best the hash attack. We can do we can crack the hash, or what can we do? I don't believe we can do best the hash, because that's a Kerberos hash, not an NTLM2 v2. So we need to crack it, which most of the time is gonna be our initial foothold into the domain. However, I'm not gonna continue with this. I just wanted to show you the users.txt. I just wanted to show you the script. After I enabled that, you can see we got the active users, which is asrep user, where we got an error over here when we ran first time. That with Kerberos. Let me check Nmap again. So I'm gonna leave it here, or maybe it's here. No, it's not here. So cd to delete cat Nmap full. Oops, where is it? It's here. So next port, which is an RPC. RPCs or remote procedure call, I believe it was called. It runs on port 135. This port is used by a lot of Windows services, including WMI, DCOM, SAMR or SAMR. There are a lot of RPC stuff. You can go to here. You can see Microsoft RPC over here at the end as well, which help the AD to work properly. So RPC is an old protocol for the SMB. What's SMB? We're gonna see in a while. So just for the SMB to work with legacy stuff, it requires an RPC running. So that's an RPC. 139 is NetBIOS. No, that was NetBIOS. So that needs to be running with SMB, not the RPC. With RPC, we can remotely query machines for information like which users are logged in, what services are running, what group exists, and so on. With 139, that's what like before the SMB era. So 139 and 445. Here we can see 139, and a little bit down we can see 445 over here. So these two ports expose SMB or server message block, and SMB is used for file sharing across the network. There is SMB, there is Samba for Linux. Most environments rely heavily on SMB, whether for accessing network drivers, sharing tools, or domain-wide GPOs. So for us, the pen testers or the attackers, SMB is a gold mine. With anonymous access, we can enumerate shares. If signing is disabled, then we can relay the attacks or do a man in the middle attacks and so on. So that's really an interesting port. So I really hate talking just theory. Let's apply that into practice. So No-Auth SMB. Before running No-Auth SMB and just firing that up, I'm gonna show you netexec. I believe I'm going to make an episode for that as well. So if you are interested, please let me know in the comment section. So netexec is a tool for enumerating several ports. So or not only ports, but protocols. Oops. Let me check over here. I'm gonna make a new tab, Control T and netexec. So not only for Windows or Active Directory protocols, here you can see SMB protocol, LDAP protocol, WinRM protocol, Microsoft SQL, FTP, SSH, and so on. If you are not familiar with all of these names, don't worry. I believe I'm going to make an episode soon about that. So to authenticate to SMB, there are three ways. First of all, there is a guest way, and there is anonymous way and authenticated way. So guest way, you just need to type over here guest and type shares. We don't have guest enabled. Then try as anonymous. We don't have access as well. Then you can maybe try asrep user. and provide the password, and you're gonna get the answers. However, in this episode, we're not going to get so many valuable stuff. Let me just try to No-Auth SMB IB. So first of all, let me go to here. Enumeration, as previously, no authentication SMB. So it ran NetBIOS, then Nmap with the version detection for SMBs, SMB client to enumerate the shares, RBC client, NetExec with many stuff like GPP password, auto login, SMB ghost, Brint nightmare, and so on, and try to enumerate password policy. However, in this specific vulnerable Active Directory set, in this lab, we cannot do anything beside than enumerating through the NMB lookup. Here we see that the lab DC is up and the MAC address, and we see the running protocol for SMB. Nothing interesting. However, that's always or almost always the most interesting port that we're gonna enumerate, but not today. So please make sure to follow and don't forget to leave a like, please leave a comment, hit the subscribe button so you would see what we can do with SMB enumeration next episode with the ASREP user. Next, we're gonna move to LDAP. LDAP, let me check, oops, which runs on 389. Stands for Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. It's the standard way of querying the Active Directory database. We can use LDAP to pull tons of information, all users in the domain, all groups and group membership, computers, OUs, even trust relationships. So that's the same with LDAPs, which is, I believe it was 636. You see SSL for the secure protocol. It's just LDAP over SSL, same idea but encrypted. Some environments enforce it, which means we need to bind with a valid user account. Still very useful for information, especially when we are already authenticated. And here you see some other stuff that most of the time you are not interested with, such as the 593, the RPC stuff over there. Here you see certificates. You're gonna check them, I believe, after a few episodes. We're gonna check them together. Here we see the 5985, the WinRM, which is another way to authenticate to Windows machines. And we see the RPCs opens over there. So we still have no auth. We haven't gone through. No authentication. LDAP. Let me check. I believe we're not going to have anything as well. So over here, I'm just going. I don't think I already provide the domain. So export all. Yeah, I provided that. So no auth. I need no auth, LDAP, but I'm not going to provide LDAP S. I'm just going to provide LDAP. I don't think we got anything. Let me check. Yeah, we have nothing. That's okay. We're gonna check together LDAP with authentication because our server doesn't allow anonymous connection. And what do we have as well? So here is no authentication LDAP, no authentication SMB. We've checked Kerberos, we've checked DNS. So I believe that's it. I'm going to end the video. Make sure to check the code, and next time we're gonna see the authentication SMB and LDAP and what we can do with the hash that we got. See you next time, and make sure to leave a comment in the comment section. See you.